how do you watch F1? It's so boring. None of the cars are even equal. I like F1 and all, but why don't they just make all the cars the same?
That's not the point. And the thing is, I get it. The solution to everything seems to be to make the cars equal. Too much domination, equal cars. Not enough overtakes, equal cars. Teams can't afford F1, equal cars. But why then would F1 never even consider making the cars equal? Well, it's simple. Despite what the focus of the media is, the drivers, and don't get me wrong, I am guilty of that too, the main reason for F1 as a sport existing is as a measure of teams as a whole. It is crucially a team sport. Not only is it about Lando, Max, Hamilton, or Alonso, but the pit crew, the strategists, the team principals, the guy who makes the coffee, and crucially, the engineers who have all worked their way through junior formulas and other racing series to enter the pinnacle of motorsport. Maybe not the coffee guys, but you get the idea. I mean, to become an F1 engineer at a high level, you don't just need to tick the boxes of attending the right schools and universities, but also it's very important you get relevant experience working on and around cars, learning through being hands-on, usually in other forms of motorsport, although rarely but sometimes road cars will be enough. So yeah, these guys are highly trained, but what's that got to do with equal cars? Well, if you're gathering some of the most highly skilled personnel in their given fields, you might as well get them, Adrian Newey, to build something mental. Develop a superior active suspension system, create some of the most powerful engines of an era, or have a car that goes so fast you think the timing system is broken. More on that later. You now see where the appeal comes from for these teams. They get to flex their huge engineering muscles, but also there are still real-world applications for these features too. For a start, in recent years, with the exploration into ground effect teams are able to do, at the moment in F1, we've seen a team like Aston Martin bring over their Formula 1 technology to build their Aston Martin Valkyrie, a road-legal 1,140 brake horsepower, 6.5-litre V12 hybrid supercar, and that thing just flies. But many things we now take for granted were first developed not invented, in F1. Turbochargers were massively worked upon in the sport. Think how reliable they are now compared to those 1980s F1 cars that blew up if someone looked at them funny. Ceramic brakes, which are a huge improvement in stopping power, and obviously carbon fiber, which apparently they seem to have to remind us of every 2 minutes this year, were also largely developed through Formula 1 and are now crucial parts to not just racing, but improvements in vehicles as a whole. And the reason for doing this through Formula 1 comes down to a bit of psychology. You've heard the phrase that technology develops faster in war, because you need to develop better weapons than the countries you're fighting. Now, as a completely untrained psychologist, F1 pretty much does the same thing. The guys in these teams are completely devoted to going faster than the fellas in the other teams. They are at war, which means the motivation to develop those new technologies to make the cars more efficient, lighter, and faster is higher than just plopping an old engineer in a room and telling him,
come up with some groundbreaking shit.
Obviously, Formula 1 is kept to a tight set of regulations. The formula, haha, you see what I did there? In order to make sure what these guys build is actually somewhat relevant to real life. Otherwise, Adrian Newey would either have had an aneurysm or built man-made horrors beyond our comprehension. Alright, but F1 doesn't sell tickets by being an engineering convention. Otherwise, you'd see the Tifosi at the next Volkswagen shareholders meeting.
Volkswagen. Das Auto.
It sells tickets by having exciting racing, and I think that's where most people see unequal cars as the downfall of F1. As if they were equal, there's no doubt the racing would be closer, but I think it would lack the magic Formula 1 has. At the start of every season, you go in not knowing what could happen. Sure, it could be Mercedes or Red Bull domination, or maybe it could be one of those magic seasons where all the teams are close, all at the pinnacle of performance together. There's a race in the paddock to not just find a couple seconds, but find every millisecond in car development. Or maybe you get the story of the underdogs, new teams making their way to the top like Williams did when they shoved it to the Ferraris and McLarens of their day. Without F1 being F1, you wouldn't have the story of the P34, a car that rocks up in the first few rounds of 1976 with 6 wheels, all in the pursuit of traction and aerodynamics. It would even go on to score a win at the Swedish Turkish Grand Prix that year, showing to everyone that being at the forefront of innovation would be the key to Formula One's success. And the same goes with the classic story of the underdog, something crucial to making any sport watchable. When Brawn arrived at the pre-season testing in 2009, it was a miracle. Honda, the previous team owners, had hastily pulled out, leaving all the members of the F1 team who devoted their lives to the project nearly jobless. With an almost fully built race car ready to go, new team owner Ross Brawn sorted it out. They threw in a Mercedes engines, despite the chassis not even being built for it, and turned up to race. With an innovation, the double diffuser, that would literally blow away the competition and lead to one of the most exciting stories in the sport ever. That wouldn't happen with equal cars. I even touched on this earlier, but in 2004, Ferrari started testing the F2004. That was their car for the year, and they were so shocked by how quick the lap times were, they insisted the timing system was broken, until they rocked up at every race, having Michael Schumacher demolish the competition. Of course, only Ferrari would be in disbelief their car was actually quick, but that was simply magic. Equal cars would make the racing closer, it would create more overtakes, but you would no longer see the rule-bending innovations, the politics and fighting of the teams over half a tenth a lap time, and crucially, the stories of passion, fire, and motivation that make Formula One so bloody exciting. So if you still want equal cars, go watch F2. But before you do, subscribe for more Formula One content from me, and thank you for watching. Goodbye!